Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
So, we have now discussed mostly we have discussed this scenario, a single project, single resource is the scenario we have discussed, okay. But you can imagine there are other scenarios like single project, multiple resources, multiple project, single resource, or multiple project, multiple resources, okay. Which do you think as a project manager, what do you think you should be dealing with?
Multiple resources.
Yes, as a project manager, you're certainly the challenge you have is single project, multiple resources. Okay. Now,
But there are project managers which lead different projects at the same
right,
time.
right. So if you are, for example, there are many builders who build homes. They'll have a project manager managing multiple projects. But sometimes when we look at it as what do you say? Those, I mean, when we are talking about single project, multiple resource, we mean a large project. Okay, typically there's a single project manager. But you're right, they can have a single project manager with multiple medium or small projects, and in which case he is, yes, in some ways dealing with multiple projects, multiple resources. Okay, but again in terms of scale that might not be as challenging as a single project. Okay, the volume or the repetitiveness. Typically multiple project, single project manager, multiple projects are residential buildings and things like that. Now, who has to deal with multiple projects, multiple resources?
The large company.
The large company. So, okay, like we said, when we are talking about buying materials in bulk, or you have a plant and machinery division which itself is a profit center. That my plant and machinery division owns equipment in the company, and I have to give equipment to different sites. I have to charge the site for the equipment, and I have to show profit to the company for charging the site for my equipment. Okay, so then you have these. Then they really are challenged with multiple project, multiple resources. Another example of multiple project, multiple resource which is happening today is what we talk about metro rail. You take a single company, okay, they might have multiple, they have multiple projects just on the metro rail in the city. Okay, they have a station building here, a station building there, a rail section here, and they have to share resources between these multiple projects. Okay, there might be, and it is a challenge. Okay, if you get to so if you really get to some of our large construction companies, they are spread all over the country, and they cannot. There are very few resources they can share across the country, some very heavy cranes, things like that, but within a region there is a lot of resource sharing that needs to take place, and it is quite a challenge. Okay, any questions?
Multiple projects, single resource.
It is when you have a very valuable resource.
You just said example, cement.
Yes.
On
Yeah.
all sides you require cement.
Right. Yeah, that is from a no, that is not from a vendor's perspective. I have to get material for multiple projects, and that material, if I can get a bulk discount on that material.
Equipment.
Yes, this other example is equipment, and typically it might be it is I mean there was, for example, in some case you might have some kind of pumps which are heavy duty, and you can only use it with such high volume, you're not going to have many of those in your company, but you will need it on certain projects. Common example is cranes. Okay, yeah, just heavy lift cranes. Okay, a company will need it. It's a very valuable resource, because if you have it, you can use it, get onto a site, do a lift and leave the site, very efficient. But to invest in a crane is crores, but its usage has to be across multiple projects. You cannot write it off on a single project. Any other examples you can think of? Right. So sometimes the owner decides that he has so many projects. It's not the contractor who does the resource sharing, it's the owner who actually invests in the crane and or the equipment and does that. Okay, so our focus will mainly be on single project, single resource to illustrate how resources are modeled and the basics of it, but we will go on to the challenge of looking at multiple project, multiple resources in a later lecture. Okay, you will find there is a lot of subjectivity that comes into it. It is, when we are trying to do the scheduling, when we are trying to do the an optimal schedule, there is a lot of subjectivity, and that is what still makes it a challenge. Okay, so now let us go on to two resources. Okay, everything remains the same. What we are taken as resource 1, resource 2, and we are taking a scenario where there is an equipment and manpower. We are saying the equipment is required for the first half of each activity, so the equipment will be used for some time, but the manpower is required throughout. Okay, in principle everything is exactly the same, all you are doing is adding up the total for each day here. So you have resource 1, resource 2. Okay, and you will see this is the for that day what the resource load is, and so you can see for equipment it goes up to 3, for manpower also it goes up to 3, and here we are using unit quantities just for illustration, so everything kind of remains the numbers remain small. And if we want to visualize what is the histogram, we can kind of visualize the equivalent histogram in this way, and this would be the cumulative resource graph for the two. Now this becomes, the cumulative becomes meaningful when we put cost into it. Okay, and we are going to be, so we are saying the cost of the manpower is 250 per day and the equipment is 500 per day, and now we have cost loaded the bar chart. Okay, so all of these values now relate to cost. So here you can see all of this is 250 is for the resource 1, and for resource 2 you can see the values, and the cumulative values for resource 1, cumulative values for resource 2, and the equivalent graph is over here. So this is the blue line shows you the resource 1 cumulative graph, the red line for resource 2, and the green line the total. Okay, so if this was my project, I will have to be able, I mean I can know what my cumulative cost is, how much money would I have spent by day 10 for example. Okay, now let us do a small exercise. Okay, so this is a network you are familiar with, the durations are a little reduced so that you can get it within a reasonable time, and you will be able to plot these, do the calculations for a lesser number of days, but go ahead, plot the network. So I have given you the duration, I have given you the resource, I have given you as trucks. Okay, and we are also going to ask ourselves a question, what if only 10 trucks are available, what would you do? But before we get to the second question, let us just plot the resource histogram for the early start. Okay, plot the resource histogram for the early start.
You need to draw network analysis.
You need to draw network analysis. How will you draw it otherwise?
Gantt chart. Use the Gantt chart.
Yeah, so how will you draw a Gantt chart? Try it. See if you can do it without the network analysis. Okay, it's something which you want to try. Yeah, you want to try doing this without the network. You can draw it because it's simple enough, but you will see that you are anyway doing a network analysis in your mind. So what, you don't need to plot it. What we will do is we'll come out with numbers at the bottom. Just put the numbers. The plot will be, and we'll take it. Okay, do you get? So this is the network. Okay, it gives you a bit of practice to do your network analysis. Okay, so what I have here is basically a table which we are going to enter values in. I have the resources, number of resources. So when we take A, what it goes from? Okay, so that's the bar chart for A, and we are entering. Okay, two in each. Okay, what about B? B goes from
3 to 5.
And we have 1. C 5 to 9.
6
No.
to 10.
Yeah, that's what 6. So that is that. So when we say 5 here, this is the end of 5. Yeah, this is the start of day 6. Okay, so this is day 6 to 9. And it has 6. D is it's the same. And it has 4. E is 5 to 7. F 9 to 11. Okay, I'm going to and it has 2 11 to 14. Yeah. Which one? E should have 4. That's right. Thanks. Okay, so we are at G. Now we go to H. H goes from 7 to 10. And it has 1, and I is to 15, and it has 1. Okay, so it becomes 2, 2, 1, 1, 1, 14, 11, 11, 3, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1. Okay, so this becomes the resource profile. Now, which are our critical activities? We know that, so the first thing, so this is answers the first question. This is the profile. Now the second is, are there any questions on this? Okay, so once the profile is determined, now I know I have trouble, right? I will not be able to do this early start profile because I have 14 and 11. Is there anything I can do about it?
Utilize the floats.
I have to utilize the floats. Okay, so in order to utilize the floats, I have to understand what my, first of all, which activities have floats. So I know that my A, this is critical, B is critical, C is critical, F, G and I. Okay, so all of this I cannot, there's no float on B, it is fixed, I cannot move these at all, okay. F, right, G and F. So whatever profile change I have to do is by moving D, E and H, that's here. Okay, so now we can see from the network and from here that my D is able to move. How far can I move D? I can move D all the way up to here, right? So I can basically move, the float allows me to move D all the way there, right? So if I move, so I'm going to put this in orange, so now I'm moving D all the way, so this is my 4 days. I want, so basically this is getting overloaded here because of the 6. So I'm moving D out of the influence of C, and I'm going to, let's take it, let's give it as much float. So I'm going to move D here, 1 on the, I can move further, but is this enough?
No, because there is 3.
No, it's,
4, 5, 6,
it's enough.
7.
No, it's enough.
It's okay. Okay. So if I do this, what I basically done is moved D away from the influence of the 6. So basically I land up at 10, 10, 7, 7, 6, 6, 6, 2, 1. Okay, so I am now within my equipment constraint. The amount, okay, so I have 10, and because I am able to use my float, I am able to do my job still within my project duration. Okay, so here we have talked about single resource, okay, single project. You can imagine now if we are trying to do this with multiple resources where this might require more of another resource, something else might require more of another resource, and now I am trying to balance all my resources to be within my available, the problem becomes more complex. Okay. Any questions on this? So we can now add, we can put cost, plot the cost curve, all of this becomes just procedural. Okay, we will, you'll need to do it so that you get a feel of it, but it is relatively simple. The key here is your network. So again, the network analysis is what provides us the bar chart. Network analysis is what gives us the float. We are only resource loading the results of the network analysis. We are calculating the total resources on a day, and that gives us a lot of information to be able to manage the project. Okay. Let's kind of look at the application of this into the two-span bridge. So this is, it's you remember, okay, what were the resources we considered here? The key resources. So if you remember, this had things like delivery of piles, beams, casting beams, piling. So we are just taking a few key resources which are to do with the crew. Okay, we are taking we are going to take just the concreting crew, the piling crew, the bridge launching crew, and here is the bar chart of the two-span bridge. And if you recall, this is with unlimited resources. Yeah, we put it onto a project planning software, so you will start slowly getting introduced to project planning software too. And you remember we had two critical paths. Okay, we had the two abutments that were critical, the middle was not so critical. You can see generally that is here, and we are using these resources. We are using the precasting gang, we are using a piling, we are using concreting, we are using a resource for girder launching and road work. Okay, so these are the key resource groups we are going to use, and we have basically loaded the resources, and you are talking about multiple resources single project, and you have to get it in. You can see the software does it for you. It shows you the resource histogram for each of the resources which we are considering. And if you are going to say, we cannot see the unit here, but if you are going to say that only one gang is available for each of the resources, only a single is available, the over allocated resources are shown. And now you have to take a decision. If I really want to finish the project in that time, it means I have to mobilize that amount of resources, or it have to go to shift work. If I have only assumed one single shift here, I might have to go to multiple shifts, okay, to finish it within the same calendar days. So these are the decisions a project manager has to make, and resources have a lot to do with how they are made effective. Okay, so to kind of summarize what we covered here, we looked at the influence of resources on project cost and time. We discussed it, and you know that it has significant influence. We resource loaded a schedule, saw the histograms, okay, saw the cumulative cost curve, the cumulative, and then we actually used the histogram to find overloading of the resources. Okay, we looked at the curve, the cumulative cost, we discussed the S curve, we saw how it varies with early start, late start, and how that can influence a project. We also used, in the example here, we used float to resolve over allocation, and this is a very important step as to how to use float and how we can not only for over allocation, but in a later lecture we will see how we can use float to level resources. Okay, thank you.